The fat you can't see. What science really says about belly fat after menopause you changed nothing. Your meals are roughly the same. Your routine hasn't shifted dramatically. And yet something around your midsection is different from what it was 5 years ago. Tighter, harder to shift. And no matter what you try, it doesn't seem to respond the way it used to. If that sounds familiar, you are not imagining it. And you are not failing. What you are experiencing has a specific biological explanation. And more importantly, there are specific, science-backed things you can do about it. Today, we are going to cut through the noise. No trends, no opinions dressed up as facts, just what the research actually shows about deep belly fat in women over 50 and what genuinely works to reduce it. Before we go any further, subscribe to this channel right now. Every week, we bring you evidence-based information for women who want to age with strength, clarity, and real health. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Let's start with what we are actually dealing with. The fat that accumulates around the midsection after menopause is not the same as ordinary body fat. It sits deep inside the abdominal cavity, surrounding the internal organs. It is not visible from the outside and cannot be felt by pinching the skin. What makes it medically significant is that it is not a passive tissue. It actively releases inflammatory compounds into the bloodstream. That is why it is linked to serious chronic conditions, including type 2 diabetes and heart disease. This is not a cosmetic concern. It is a health concern. Now, a question many women ask is whether menopause itself is responsible for this change. The answer is more nuanced than most people realize. The overall increase in body fat that tends to happen in midlife is driven primarily by the aging process and a natural decline in physical activity. The menopause transition does not directly cause more total fat. What it does is alter where the body stores it. Instead of accumulating fat around the hips and thighs as it did before, the body begins to favor the abdominal area. That redistribution is what catches many women off guard. The encouraging part is that this is not irreversible. There are clear, research-supported strategies that work. Let us go through them one by one. Starting with nutrition. Two things matter here: the quality of what you eat and the overall quantity. On the question of quantity, multiple studies confirm that maintaining a moderate calorie deficit reduces visceral fat. Some research even suggests that the specific type of diet matters less than many assume, as long as energy intake stays below energy expenditure. But diet quality makes a substantial difference, and that is where the more interesting findings live. One study compared 4 distinct eating patterns: low fat with moderate protein, low fat with high protein, high fat with moderate protein, and high fat with high protein. All groups ate low amounts of saturated fat and chose carbohydrates with a low glycemic index. After 2 years, all 4 groups lost similar amounts of weight and reduced visceral fat by comparable amounts. The conclusion is straightforward. A moderate calorie deficit combined with limited saturated fat and quality carbohydrates reduces visceral fat, regardless of whether the diet leans toward more fat or more carbohydrate. A more recent randomized controlled trial compared 3 groups. One followed a low carbohydrate approach. A second ate higher carbohydrate foods, but only unprocessed ones, such as fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. A third also ate higher carbohydrates, including some processed options like bread and pasta, but without refined products like pastries, biscuits, or sugary snacks. None of the groups consumed foods with added sugar or heavily processed ingredients. All three groups lost visceral fat despite only a modest reduction in total calories. The most likely explanation is the improvement in overall diet quality. This is genuinely liberating information. It means there is no single correct diet. It means eliminating entire food groups is not necessary. What matters is moving toward real, minimally processed food and away from ultra-processed products. And that is something that can be sustained for decades, not just for a month. The Mediterranean diet deserves particular attention here. It is among the most extensively studied dietary patterns in the world and consistently demonstrates positive effects on visceral fat, cardiovascular health, and insulin sensitivity. In a major comparative study, it performed as well as both a low carbohydrate and a low fat diet at the 2-year mark. And an enriched version of the same diet, supplemented with additional plant polyphenols, reduced nearly twice as much visceral fat as the standard Mediterranean version. 14% compared to 6%. Polyphenols are worth understanding properly. These are naturally occurring compounds found in plants that have demonstrated health benefits in humans. They are most concentrated in deeply colored fruits and vegetables. Blueberries, for example, contain anthocyanins, a class of polyphenol responsible for their deep blue color. There is specific evidence that these compounds help reduce visceral fat and waist circumference in postmenopausal women. Try to include some of the following foods daily: dark berries such as blueberries, blackberries, and cherries, both green and black tea, nuts with their skins on including almonds, pecans, walnuts, and hazelnuts, extra virgin olive oil in moderate amounts since it is calorie dense, dark leafy greens like spinach, red onions, ground flaxseed, cocoa, and soy. The polyphenols in soy, called isoflavones, act as phytoestrogens, meaning they are plant compounds with estrogen-like properties. There is some evidence they may help ease certain menopausal symptoms as well. To summarize the nutrition side, prioritize unprocessed whole foods, keep added sugar low, especially in drinks, avoid refined carbohydrates and choose whole grain alternatives, eat a wide variety of deeply colored produce, and make polyphenol-rich foods a regular part of your daily eating. Now let us talk about movement, because this is where some important corrections need to be made. Physical exercise accounts for roughly 5% of daily energy expenditure. That is why, for weight loss in the broadest sense, diet tends to have the larger impact. But when the goal is specifically reducing visceral fat, exercise is remarkably effective and may actually outperform dietary changes alone. There is something that needs addressing directly here. A great deal of misinformation has spread online, claiming that certain types of exercise cause women over 50 to spike cortisol levels and accumulate belly fat as a result. This is not supported by evidence. Cortisol rises during exercise. It does so during both aerobic activity and strength training. That is a completely normal physiological response. What matters is not the temporary rise, but the recovery afterward, meaning the return to baseline levels. There is no evidence that these brief transient increases in cortisol lead to greater belly fat accumulation. Chronic, unrelenting stress without recovery is a different matter entirely, and that is associated with obesity. But a brisk walk or a cycling session is not the problem. It is part of the solution. What the research actually shows is this: a meta-analysis drawing on data from multiple studies, which represents some of the strongest available evidence, found that both aerobic exercise and resistance training reduce visceral fat, but the effect of aerobic exercise was greater. Aerobic activity can reduce visceral fat even in the absence of weight loss. The benefit is dose-dependent, meaning more activity produces greater results, but meaningful benefits begin at relatively small amounts, and the specific type of aerobic exercise does not appear to matter significantly. Moderate steady-state cardio and high-intensity interval training are similarly effective. The best exercise is the one a person will actually do consistently. For anyone who is currently inactive and wants to start, walking is enough to begin. If the pace is brisk enough to raise the heart rate slightly and cause mild breathlessness, that qualifies as aerobic exercise in the scientific sense. That is not a beginner's compromise. That is exactly what the research supports. Resistance training, while somewhat less effective specifically for visceral fat reduction, carries a long list of benefits that are essential for women over 50. Preserving muscle mass, supporting bone density, improving joint stability, and reducing fall risk. Both forms of movement belong in a sustainable routine. Finally, 2 additional factors have a direct and measurable impact on visceral fat and are consistently underestimated. Sleep. Insufficient sleep is associated with elevated levels of visceral fat. The target is between 7 and 9 hours per night, and poor sleep compounds the problem through a second pathway. It intensifies cravings for high sugar and high fat foods. Sleep less, eat worse, accumulate more visceral fat. The cycle is real and it matters. Chronic stress. Sustained stress without adequate recovery keeps cortisol pathways chronically activated and is linked to both obesity and abdominal fat accumulation. Learning to manage stress over the long term is not optional. It is a medically relevant component of any serious strategy for health after menopause. Let us bring this together. To reduce visceral fat, improve the quality of your diet first. The specific pattern matters less than consistently choosing whole foods, plants, and polyphenol-rich ingredients. The Mediterranean diet is an excellent starting point. Move your body regularly with an emphasis on aerobic activity, any form you enjoy and can sustain. Walking counts. Add strength training for comprehensive long-term health, and protect your sleep while working steadily on your relationship with stress. These are not quick fixes. They are the kind of changes that hold for 30 years, not 30 days. Next week, we go deeper into one of the most overlooked aspects of health for women over 50, something that affects energy, mood, metabolism, and immune function all at once, and that most people are never told about clearly. Subscribe now so the new episode reaches you the moment it is available.